Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and especially for Mary Ellen joining us tonight. Mary Eisen is the founder of the Children's Melanoma Prevention Foundation, and she's been working at it since 2003. Correct me if I'm wrong. Doing it
That's
full
correct.
time pro bono, because out of gratitude for a friend finding melanoma on her mom's skin, and kind of by chance finding it and potentially saving her life. You know, finding it before it got to a later stage. Um, Mary Ellen is the recipient of many service and academic awards. She's an American Cancer Society scholar, and she is also an adjunct professor at Boston University, which is my alma mater. Mary Ellen is also an oncology and melanoma nurse, 40 years of experience.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
Mary Ellen is just a wealth of knowledge and experience, and I just love what you're doing. So thank you so much for just
thank you, Bailey.
giving so much of your time to help the world.
Thank you.
It's an honor to have you. So, yeah, do you want to share a little bit about how you got started with starting the Children's Melanoma Prevention Foundation?
Sure. So I was an oncology nurse at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute back in the 1980s, where I was the leukemia research nurse. So I followed all of the adults with leukemia. And I decided that I wanted to go back to graduate school, and I did. I went to Simmons University and became a nurse practitioner, and I focused on skin oncology. And I did that because, as you had said, I had a mother who had an incidental finding for melanoma, and I was a young nurse. And at the time of that diagnosis, I did not even know what melanoma really was. So I decided to focus on skin oncology, and I graduated from Simmons as a nurse practitioner and worked in dermatology as a nurse practitioner. And I did that for about 6 or 7 years. And then I decided that if I was really going to make a difference in this disease that I really cared about, I needed to work on prevention. And I decided that since a lot of adults weren't really that interested in changing their behaviors and really making a difference in terms of prevention and protecting themselves, even people who had had skin cancer, that I decided that I really wanted to focus on children. And I was doing a lot of programs in schools to begin with, but I was only doing that as the side. And I was also lecturing to nurses because this was something that I was interested in. But, I don't even know how it happened. Back in 2003, I got this idea in my head that I was going to start a foundation, and I got some books and I started reading, and I got some friends together and wrote the application to the IRS.
I'm
And
on
in
a meeting.
February of 2004, we received our determination letter to start the foundation. So I think that it was just something that I was supposed to do. When I think back, I say to myself, I had no background in business. I don't know why. I didn't know anybody else who had ever done that, but it just got in my head that that's something that I wanted to do. And I
Wow.
was really fortunate because I got friends to help me working in business and healthcare. And we started the foundation, and that was the beginning of it.
Wonderful. Is Arlie someone um who was with you in the early stages?
Yeah, so Orly and I worked together. So when I was at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, I followed patients at the other surrounding Harvard hospitals. So I used to go to the Beth Israel where Orly worked on the oncology floor, and that's how I met her back then. And then she came and worked at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and we've been good friends ever since. So
Oh,
yeah, back in those days, many, 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 many years ago.
oh, well, that's wonderful. And that's how you and I got introduced is through
Yeah,
Arlie. She,
absolutely.
she knew both of us, so that
Yep.
was a special treat for me.
Well, she thinks very highly of you. Yeah.
Only by God's grace. Wonderful. So I just think it's so fun and so exciting what you're doing with the children because, I mean, first of all, like you said, I agree. I think that a great way to reach the world is through children to um, teach them before they learn other things and, maybe lose interest or they don't believe other people. And but one of the great things about your program is that it's fun because, kids learn by having fun. So can you tell us more about your program?
Yeah, so we really wanted to develop something that was really fun and informative. And one of the things that I did that was very different from a lot of other organizations at the time, the Environmental Protection Agency had a curriculum that was available for teachers to use in the school, and it was called Sunwise. And I got a list of the local schools here in Massachusetts that were registered to Sunwise. And when I called them, I found out, in speaking mostly to the school nurses, that they might have registered for the program, but they weren't really implementing it and they weren't really utilizing it. And that's when I said to myself, if we're going to really make a difference, what I'd rather do is for us who are experts in the field to go into the schools and provide our knowledge to the kids rather than asking teachers to learn our curriculum and to implement it in their schools. And we started that and it worked out really well. I mean, we've taught over 1 million kids now. Prior to COVID-19, we were teaching
Yeah.
150 days a year. I now have 4 trained teachers that go into the classrooms, and we reach about 100,000 kids every year, as not only in the schools but also in the community. But we're very, very heavily scheduled in the schools, starting around January and then through October. But we try to really make it fun and informative. So from the time we're in kindergarten, we're bringing in felt boards and we're using little felt board people, and it's all interactive so the kids can teach us how to protect somebody from the sun. As children become a little bit older, we have a really cool UV reflectance camera that we use. We've done that since the very beginning. Back in the early days, we had a Polaroid camera, which was the neatest because a child would, take the picture and we allow them to open it up themselves and they'd get to see. One thing that they get to see in that is primarily is sun damage. The other thing that you get to see on UV cameras is proper sunscreen application. So sunscreens, chemical sunscreens look like a black oil slick. So it's a really great illustration to show children if they're putting their sunscreen on properly, if they're missing certain areas, but even just how sunscreen really works, that it really creates a barrier between their skin and the sun. We bring dermatoscopes into classrooms when we get into high school so kids can take a look at their own moles and see what normal features are. So we really have tried to get the kids invested in what we're teaching. Also in high school, sometimes we'll do case studies and we'll, show them pictures and we'll do a case presentation like you would do in healthcare and ask them what they think and explore what the features are that they might be concerned about and how they would handle it if they were healthcare practitioners. So we really try to make it very practical and bring it home. And one of the things that's been fun is that in some school systems, we teach in the elementary, the middle, and the high school. So I've had the opportunity to be in different levels of schools and to see what the kids remember. And that's been really fun. And also, especially in the older days, teachers would have kids write thank you notes and they would share what they learned in the program. And it was really terrific to see the things that they took away from our lessons in terms of, when to put their sunscreen on, how much to use, when to reapply, the importance of sun protection clothing, all different things. So we really try to make it practical, but the thing you had said about teaching kids, they are fresh, and it's wonderful to be in a classroom teaching kids because they're so positive about the lesson. But the other things, when we've had the opportunity to also do parent programs, parents have told us that kids have come home and taught them what they learned in the classroom. So one of the things that we do is ask the kids to go home and teach their families. And And that's proved really, really positive, really positive.
That's wonderful. Yeah, you get the whole family through the kids.
Yeah, we
That's
really
great.
do. And back in the old days when we had the Polaroid pictures, you know, we did a study in one of the a couple of the middle schools here in Massachusetts, and we used the Polaroid photographs. And then we went back at 3 months and 6 months, and we looked at sunburn incidents. We also asked the kids about the lesson and about their photographs. And it was amazing how many kids 6 months out still had their Polaroid photograph
Oh,
that they referred to. And I
wow.
also had kids who would say to me when I'd go back a following year, they'd say, that picture really scared me. I had so much sun damage, but I
Wow.
tried really hard to do a better job this year. So I'm really excited about seeing my photograph again this year. So it was
Mhm.
really an interesting tool for the kids to also gauge how well they were doing in terms of protecting themselves.
I who would have known that you could take a Polaroid picture and see your skin damage?
Yeah.
That's
So
brilliant.
there's a video called How the Sun Sees You that was done by a videographer in New York City in Prospect Park in Brooklyn. It's a great video if any of you get a chance to watch it. It's only 3 minutes long, but it shows you that UV video camera that we use in the classroom and all of the points that I'm trying to make. And it's really great. And we actually worked with that videographer in creating the prototype to bring the camera system, which was our last rendition, into the schools. And we have 3 of those camera systems that we can bring out, not only into the schools, but into the community. So you can set them up. And I just find that it's such a great hook for, and even myself, I've protected my skin for a really long time, but I have a lot of sun damage, tremendous sun damage. And a big family history. Not only my mother, but I had told you, Bailey, when we spoke, I have a brother who's got very significant skin cancers, and as do other siblings. So it humbles me to take a look at my skin and say, yeah, I really have to work hard at this. It's a great tool to clue people into the importance of sun protection.
Mm. Do you regularly take those Polaroids of your skin, or?
So we did do the Polaroids, but
Yeah.
the Polaroid stopped making the film. So
Oh, right.
probably 10 years ago, we had to switch systems. So we switched to a
Okay.
computerized system, which was wonderful, but it was very cumbersome to do in the classroom. And that's why when I saw this video that I just mentioned, How the Sun Sees You, and contacted the videographer, we were able to create a system that wasn't too expensive, that we could bring into the classroom or into the community, and we use them all the time.
Wow.
Starting about 4th grade, we use it. So 4th through 12th and in the community. And everybody loves it because it lets them see their own skin.
Mm. Is there an easier way to access something like that for any, the average person to know how much skin damage they have?
So they also have these, they're called skin analyzers. That's what they had back in the old days. They were black lights,
Oh,
so that's what we used maybe in the very beginning, or we used that as an ancillary. So they're in health fairs, they're around, but the camera systems are just so much more sophisticated.
mm.
There was a Kickstart campaign. There was a company that was making one of these little UV cameras as a tool that you could take to the beach. It was supposed to be designed to attach to your beach bag, and you could use it to see
Wow.
if you had your sunscreen on properly. But they didn't really come, at least in terms of what I know from Kickstarter, they didn't never come to fruition.
Oh, that's too
So,
bad.
it's just the more expensive system. So sorry. But the video, I must tell you, the video is really great because it's all different ages of people, and it gives you a really great idea. It's not your own skin, but it gives you a good idea.
Mm. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, the basics that you teach, aware, it's aware, right? An acrostic.
Sunaware.
Yeah. Can you explain those to us? What you teach
Yes.
exactly?
So a friend of mine, Mary Barrow, who actually, she and her husband owned Coolie Bar Sun Protection Clothing Company. She was a writer by profession, and I met her at a professional meeting. She had written a book called Sun Protection for Life, and in it, she had coined the SunAware acronym. And she had started her own foundation called SunAware International Foundation. And a number of years ago, she passed her nonprofit along to us, and she provided us with the acronym and the trademark and other things. But the thing that I loved about the acronym when I met her and I read the book was that it teaches not only what we call primary prevention, which is to shade, to wear sun protection clothing, to apply, number 30 SPF sunscreen and reapply, every 2 hours. But it also includes, so the A is avoid unprotected exposure in the aware. The W is wear sun protection clothing, including hats, sunglasses, wide brim hat, long sleeves. A is apply adequate amounts of sunscreen. But the thing I really love this acronym for was that the R was to routinely examine your skin for changes and to report changes to your healthcare provider. And we're able to use that with little kids to say, you need to look at your skin when you're outside. If you're starting to turn pink, if you're tanning, you're getting too much sun. And then with older kids, we would teach them what an atypical mole is, what a precancerous growth was, what the signs and symptoms of non-melanoma skin cancer is, as well as melanoma skin cancer. So I love that because you can do everything primarily, but if you're not doing secondary prevention, which is checking your skin or having it checked by someone else, it's not going to help you. And then the E in SunAware, which I also love, is the educate others. And it's so important. And I think when people learn things, if they learn something new, then they want to share it with other people. And one of the things that we always say, if I'm doing professional programs for nurses or pharmacists or doctor, whomever it is, I always ask them, did you learn something new? And I ask them to raise their hands because most people don't know some of the simple things that we teach. And even here, we've got some participants. The UV rays peak June 21st. So it's easier to get a sunburn in May than it is in August. In schools, they don't concern themselves about UV oftentimes in the spring because it's cool, especially here in the northern part of the United States. We have more sunburns in the northern half of the United States. Melanoma is more common in children in the northern half of the United States than it is in the South. Because in the South, the kids do get, accustomed to being out in the sun. They do get some cumulative sun exposure, but we get a lot of sunburns up here in the northern half. So when we're in the schools, we're trying to not only teach children, their teachers, the administrators, and have them to start to think about the fact that you can have a field day in May. It could be 50 degrees out, but the UV can be as high as it's going to be all year.
Right.
So
It's like going skiing.
exactly. And we teach them about skiing too, because skiing, you've got altitude, you've got reflected light. I mean, it is amazing how much UV you get reflected off snow. It's amazing. So, and some people experience it when they do spring skiing, especially out west in the Alps, but you can get it here too. And, when, we ask kids, how many of you ski? Lots of kids ski. A lot of kids get a lot of sun exposure from doing that. They go away for their February vacations and their April vacation. We're lucky to be in the schools at those times to educate them about the importance of sun protection. And we always get feedback from lots of people. So, we've heard that, on some mountains, especially on slopes out west, they'll have signs up about the importance of using sunscreen because of the altitude. And that's great because people need to be reminded about the importance of sun protection.
And especially on the water too. I know you recommend with perspiration or getting wet to reapply more frequently than 2 hours, right? Because that's
Well, one of the
when
things that we teach the kids again when we're in the classroom is how to read a sunscreen label. So the FDA in 2011 put out their regulations regarding labeling. And I think you and I talked a little bit about the fact that now the FDA has come back out talking about safety of the sunscreen ingredients. But anyhow, in terms of labeling, when it comes to water resistance, it's right there on the label. And a sunscreen, if it is water resistant, either protects you for 40 minutes or 80 minutes. So we'll always say to the kids in the classroom, how long do you like to stay in the water? You want to get out every 40 minutes and put your sunscreen back on? Probably not. That's why there's nothing better than a rash guard or a sun protection shirt to cover your whole back, your arms, your neck. So we bring these things in. We bring really cool hats in. We bring funny things in. We try to teach the kids about the cultural differences in terms of sun protection. So other parts of the world take sun protection much more seriously than Americans do. 50% of Americans, kids, get a sunburn every year, and a third of adults experience a sunburn despite all of the great stuff that we have. So we talk to them and we show them pictures and we bring in products and stuff. Like, for instance, in China, which is interesting to me, in China, women wear swim masks. So they will wear a mask covering their whole face so they don't get reflected sunlight because they
wow.
tend to hyperpigment. So, and I just did a program for pharmacists and I talked about the political aspects of wearing masks. In that culture, they wear masks all the time. So it's very simple for them to accommodate wearing masks for a respiratory illness, which is seemingly more difficult for us to do. But culturally, it's so interesting. We bring in sombreros or we bring in hats from Vietnam, which are gigantic. And that's what people in those cultures wear. And Americans wear baseball caps.
Yeah.
And in America, we have 5 million cases of skin cancer every year, despite all of these wonderful products that we have. And I say, and it's important to remember that one person dies at least every 40 to 45 minutes in the United States from skin cancer. And it's preventable and it's easily recognizable. And one of the reasons I do what I do is that I think it's so important to educate people because for some reason we're not making this a priority.
Yeah. Well, thankfully, tanning beds aren't as popular as they were.
So we worked with the state legislature and we got the tanning ban in Massachusetts in 2016. Wow. And when I first started, I didn't think it was as important as it was. But once I was in the school working with the kids, I realized how important it was. I had kids that I would meet that would be badly burnt because they would go to a tanning bed and their classmate would be the operator for the tanning machine. Oh. And they would ask them to dial it up and keep them in and give them a really good, and they get burnt to a crisp. Kids, treating kids with things that can harm them. So I was really happy that that legislation passed that you have to be at least 18 to operate a tanning bed, and you have to be at least 18 years of age to go to a tanning salon. And because of that, tanning salons have closed here in Massachusetts and in many other parts of the country. And the other thing that I wanted to say, which is really exciting, is that for the first time in 40 years, melanoma has come down in young people. And that's kids, women in their, well, people in their 20s as well as their 30s. The first time. So for the last 40 years, melanoma has increased every single year in young people by 2%, 2 to 3%. And now it's gone down. I'm hoping that that statistic is going to continue, but that was released by the Center for Disease Control last fall. So, and I really do believe that a large part of that is banning indoor tanning.
Wow. Yeah. For people who don't necessarily burn, like someone like like myself, yeah. Like I'm thinking of a friend who goes tanning and she tans.
Right.
What's the risk of melanoma or skin cancer if you don't burn?
So
Typically.
we teach people in dermatology. We classify people in 5 different skin types, from type 1, which are the ones that are very light complected, freckling, oftentimes redheaded. They always burn, never tan. Type 2 is what I am, which is usually burned but could tan, down to type 5, which is deeply pigmented. We teach people that anybody can get skin cancer anywhere in their body. But it's true that people that look like me or you, Bailey, have a much greater chance of it. But people, we always say Bob Marley died of malignant melanoma. And people
Oh, I
who
didn't
are
know that.
very deeply complected tend to get their melanomas on their palms, their soles, and on their nail beds. And he developed his on the nail bed of his big toe. And people who are type 5 skin, who are very deeply complected, do not think they're at risk. So when they do develop a lesion on their skin, melanoma, for instance, they often don't get it treated. So they do not do as well as other people with the disease. So I like to teach them. And even in the classroom, again, I have so much fun in the classroom, but people who are very dark complected tend to get their moles even on their palms. And in the classroom, when I'm in a classroom with kids, I'll say, and they'll check and they'll see it. And I'll say, see, so you do have, changes in your skin. I also teach them how fortunate they are to have melanin in their skin to protect them, because I don't have as much melanin as they do. So they have a lot of natural protection, but that doesn't mean that, they have a free pass. They need to protect
Right.
themselves and they need to check their skin.
Mm. Um, so I have couple other questions. Let's talk about sunscreens. I was surprised, at the latest, research that you shared with me. What what type of sunscreen do you recommend people use?
So I'm going to go back a little bit and just give you a little background,
Yeah.
because they might not know what we had talked about. And even
Hmm.
from the time that you and I talked, Bailey, I've got more information. So
Oh,
it's just
wow.
so there's presently 14 sunscreen filters that are approved by the FDA and used in the United States in sunscreen products, 12 of which are chemical and 2 of which are mineral. So the mineral ones are the zinc and the titanium dioxide, and then there's 12 chemicals from oxybenzone and avobenzone and octinoxate and all of them. The thing that's really interesting for me about this, because again, I work with children and I work with families, the FDA came out last year and they said that they did not have enough research to support that the chemical sunscreens could be rated what they call GRACE. GRACE in the FDA is generally accepted to be safe and effective. So in February of 2019, they requested that the sunscreen manufacturers do more clinical trials to show safety.
Mm.
And that's where it was left out. The FDA then did 2 studies themselves. The first study was reported in May of 2019, where they used 4 different chemicals and they had 24 different subjects in the research study. They used oxybenzone, avobenzone, they used ecamisol, and they used octocrylene in that first study. And what they found was that all 4 of those ingredients did get into the blood. They crossed over the skin barrier into plasma. So they said that we need more information. They did a second study, which was reported in the Journal of the American Medical Association in January of 2020, where they now used 6 different chemical ingredients. They used 3 new ones, and they didn't use a camisole this time. Again, they found the same thing, that all 6 of the chemicals were in the blood. They said we need more information. They were supposed to have the sunscreen manufacturers come back, and by fall of this year, we were supposed to have the final answer. I did a presentation last week to pharmacists, so I was doing a little bit more research about just this, and I found that the Sunscreen Innovation Act of 2015 or 2014, that was what the FDA was responding to when they came out with this, has been rolled into the CARES Act. On March 27th, the federal government rolled the Sunscreen Innovation Act into CARES, and they said they reinstated the generally accepted as safe and effective determination for all of the chemical sunscreens. So where we're at with chemicals, I really don't know the answer to. And it's funny because I'm very active with different national organizations, and I hadn't received any information from them. So back to your question, what do I recommend? I had written an op-ed about this problem, this issue. And I think that if people are concerned about the chemicals, then they should use a sunscreen that just has zinc or titanium. And there are many really wonderful sunscreens that just have that. That said, Consumer Reports, who rates sunscreens every year in one of their issues, never rate the mineral sunscreens as the most protective. They rate the chemical sunscreens as the most protective of your skin. So I think it's really a personal decision that people need to decide if they're concerned about this issue. If they're concerned, then they shouldn't be using the chemicals. The other thing I always tell people, the best sunscreen is the sunscreen that you like to use.
There's a saying about juicers like that. The best juicer to buy is the one that you'll use.
It's true. It's really true. I mean, that's what you want to do. So I think it's important for people to try different products. We've been very fortunate as a foundation that sunscreen companies have given us sunscreens that we've been able to go out to the community and give them out to people. People can try them. And also we worked with a company called Snapperock. They gave us $100,000 worth of sun protection clothing that we go out into the communities and we give. I went to a school in New York City, and we did a whole school event, and every kid in the school got a rash guard. And, it's just fun to give gifts that are really practical and something that's going to protect kids after you leave.
Absolutely. So I just want to take 5 more minutes of the interview before doing Q&A. This will probably take that much time. Do you have any plans of expanding into other states with your program?
One of the things that we were fortunate enough to do before the COVID pandemic hit was we had received a grant from a nonprofit here in Massachusetts to create videos. And we did a video of our program for grades 3 through 5 and 6 through 8. So, and we worked with a whole team of educators to plan how best to do it. And they were terrific in terms of recommending what we did it, how we should do it. So we did a 30-minute presentation because we were recommended at that time that 30 minutes could fit into a classroom program, providing the teacher, health educator, with some extra time to go over the content, to give them post-tests and homework and answer questions. Then with the pandemic, we were fortunate to be able to contact all of our participating schools, share with them these videos, and assist them in implementing them in their now at-home classrooms. So we did a Zoom presentation with some schools. So we did that after the kids would watch the videos and do the post-tests, so we could do questions and answers like we're going to do. So we have the ability to expand. I went to a program in Maui in January, and it was a group of dermatologists from around the United States. It's called Maui Derm. And our program, what's really terrific about it is our ability to be in the classroom, but that limits the number of children we can see. So by having the videos, we can work with other people around the country to utilize them. And we're now also going to work in the next couple of months. Again, we're waiting for this pandemic to settle out a little bit, but we're going to do a program for K through 2 and also a high school program and a professional program. So we do lots of professional programs. So we want to have all of the videos, the content available for anybody who wants to use it. And the other thing, Bailey, that we're doing right now, we're rewriting our curriculum according to the 2020 national standards. So we had created the curriculum originally according to the Massachusetts frameworks, which meets the national standards, but they've changed. So we're rewriting that right now. So that's going to be available by next month.
That's awesome.
We're using this time to kind of pivot and work on the things that we have.
That's very cool. I think that's one of the great things about COVID is I think, you can reach so many more people over a video platform. Although, it's not ideal. You can't see people in person and, give them a hug and such. But,
but
I think it's pretty cool.
You can't hug them even in person. So.
Oh, well. One quick question. What is it called the day before Memorial Day?
Don't Friday.
Don't Friday. I didn't even know. I hadn't heard about that until a couple days ago.
So Don't Friday, we just celebrated our 12th year of Don't Friday. Wow. And it's the Friday before Memorial Day, which is the unofficial kickoff of summer. And it's a day of skin cancer awareness throughout the United States. And the National Council for Skin Cancer Prevention, which we're a member, are the ones that oversee it. And it's been a really wonderful program. And National Council has a contest to see who can do the most on Don't Friday. And we won 2 years in a row.
Oh, congratulations.
We did programs. We also have gotten the state legislature in Massachusetts to recognize Don't Friday officially.
Wow.
And when you do that, then that gets picked up by the news more. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I think is that from the clip that you have from that news station in Boston. They were covering Don't Friday, I think. They interviewed you. Another woman.
Once upon a time I was interviewed for Don't Friday, but it wasn't this past year. This year we of course were in the house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, let's open it up for Q&A. So if anyone has a question, please unmute yourself and share your question with Maryellen. Looks like Jill is ready.
Super.
Always. Always. I do have, I've been taking notes as you were speaking. Thank you so much for sharing. So one of my questions is, you mentioned about the UV clothing, and I've seen them in the market. Mm-hmm. Are they any better, or can they replace the sunblock lotions?
Yes. Yes. So they have a different rating system. It's called UPF, ultraviolet protection factor, and a 50 plus blocks 99% of the UV. Companies like Cooley Bar and Snap-A-Rock and Cabana, they really test their products. So they wash them thousands of times to make sure that they maintain their ability to filter out the UV rays. I don't think there's anything better than them. They're terrific. So, and the shirts, you can pass them on to different people. They're just, and you can get, I always tell people very practically, you can buy them on sale, in the fall and the winter if you're concerned about the price. We've just been very fortunate that Snap-A-Rock has provided us with it. But we even have those one-piece suits for infants. Not that less than 6 months, you're not supposed to have them in the sun, but it's great to cover kids up. We also hear from parents that if you start having them wear a swim shirt from the time they're little, they expect to always wear it. They don't even want to go to an indoor pool and not put their swim shirt on. Yeah. So I like to start early with kids. I always give it as a present to new parents, sun protection clothing.
Okay. Yeah. So for my family, I do buy the ones for the beach, but last week I just bought my nieces. It's like a sweater that you could put on while you're running. So it's like a dry
Uh-huh.
kind of sweater. But I didn't really know how, effective that was or what the
So
UPF meant.
yeah, if they've got the UPF, then
Yeah.
that's
It
really
says 50 plus.
yeah, industry standards, and they have to meet those standards in order to put that on the label. And I don't
Cool.
think there's anything better, especially for the beach and the water and swimming. And
Mhm.
some of these companies also have hats for the kids to swim with, and they really stay on in the water. I mean, it's really terrific if you can, because the beach is my favorite place.
Me
So
too.
I really want to go. And
Yeah.
even myself, I have two shirts that I bring with me. I wear
Mhm.
one in the water, I come out, I take it off and let it dry off and put another one on. So I want to be able to use the beaches that we have around here in Massachusetts. They're fun.
Nice.
You have to do it safely.
Thank you. And then I'm actually a volunteer at my kids' school. I'm the
Mhm.
president of the PTO, so I'm interested in that program that you were talking about.
What grades?
Sorry?
What grades are your
Oh, they're high school.
high school? Okay.
High school. So as like given COVID situation, we would work well with Zoom meetings. So I wanted to
Okay.
know how do we plug into that program to get some.
Just contact us. If you send me an email, we can arrange that for when the kids are back in school. So
Is that
we have,
Bailey, you're sharing that information?
yeah, but she can share that. Yeah. We have a high school program that's on our website right now that is a really amazing video also. We had done it before there was a tanning ban, and it was a young woman talking about her tanning addiction and her melanoma diagnosis. And in it, we also talked about the ABCDs of melanoma and the importance of protection. And it's an incredibly powerful video because I had videotaped her when she was healthy and first diagnosed, and then when she had late stage metastatic disease. And we also did the video where we were in a school and we let kids react to what Glenna said. And it was amazing to hear the kids and the different impressions that they had from the things that she said, especially males versus females. It gave you a lot of insight as to what the kids think. So we do have that one, but we are going to be working on another program for high school.
Awesome.
So we would love to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll be watching that. So
We could definitely do that. Where are you located?
I'm in Texas. I'm in Houston, Texas. So we start school in 3 weeks. But we're going to start online school for the first month. So I'm thinking, I always try to do something for the kids, right after the first PTO parents meeting. I'd like to do programs like this, something health related. And I think being in Texas, we're under the sun a lot.
Right.
And this is some information that we can use. And I'd like to, well, for myself also, and for the children to get educated about how to take care of our skin. And you know how high schoolers are very conscious about their skin. So this is something that, we could all really use.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. One of the things, as I said, one of the other things I didn't share with you yet, but I want to make sure I get it in. There are free UV apps that you can download for your smartphone that tells you what the UV is a moment in time, wherever you are, if you're in the mountains or at the beach. There's nothing better. And some of them also have timers and clocks to remind you to put your sunscreen back on. They're really terrific. And I think that's a really great asset to use for yourselves. And one of the things we bring out for the kids, but we would love to work with your school system. So
yes, please.
send me an email.
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Awesome. I provided the website. It's melanomaprevention.org in the chat.
She can reach me at either Maryellen at melanomaprevention.org or info at melanoma prevention. They both come to me.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Who else has a question?
I do.
Super.
Hi, I'm Teresa. I'm a friend of Bailey's, and I appreciate the information. I really didn't think that melanoma was so prevalent as a cancer killer, so really do appreciate the information. I do have some concerns with the constant application of sunscreen. So I wrote a couple of things. You know, the need for vitamin D, there's a great vitamin D deficiency, even as it relates to COVID-19. We know that the vast majority of people, low vitamin D, it's easy to be deficient. I know the easy answer would be to say, hey, just take a supplement, but you can't really replace the vitamin D that we get from sun exposure. So and also too, when I think of, you know, the nature therapy and the emotional support of being out in the sun. So that's one part. I do believe that the best thing to do is just cover up a bit. I like the modesty part of that for our grandchildren and our young people. So I always think it's better to cover up. But I am concerned a little bit about, you know, this fear factor. You know, the air is bad, the sun is bad. So that whole thing. Right. And then, of course, and I'm interested to know these children in the South that don't have as much melanoma because they have this gradual exposure. I'm really curious to know about their overall immune function. Are they generally just healthier kids? And then, of course, you can't dismiss the toxic load from the constant chemical application. I mean, it may not be affecting them in their youth, but it can certainly creep up when they're middle-aged. So I know there was like 4 different points.
Yes,
but
that was a lot of questions.
How I would love to hear you address them. I'm so interested, and thank you so much.
I'm going to start with the first one. So the first one, which was about vitamin D. Teresa, do you know how much UV exposure you need to have to get adequate vitamin D from the sun?
No, I do not.
So it's you'll hear it. William Holick, who is at Boston University, he's an endocrinologist. He is the foremost expert in vitamin D and UV, probably in the world. And he has done lots of research on this. And it's 10 minutes, 3 times a week of midday sun. That's all you need. Now, the American Academy of Dermatology has not liked hearing that, but he talks, just as you talk about, the bioavailability of natural vitamin D versus supplementation. So it is his recommendation, but he always, and I actually go to him as a doctor, and you know, he's as pale can be, but he does get his vitamin D. So I understand the importance of that. I wanted to touch on melanoma mortality. So I wanted to say to you, when I say that one person dies every 45 minutes from skin cancer, that's because it's not just melanoma, but it's also squamous cell skin cancer, basal cell skin cancer, and Merkel cell. With melanoma, for the first time again in 40 years, because of new innovative targeted therapies, people are surviving. So the number of people, the American Cancer Society puts out their cancer facts and figures every year. The mortality, deaths due to melanoma in the last 5 years has gone down 33%. So
That's substantial.
Huge. It's huge. But that said, we're still having a very significant number of deaths due to other forms of skin cancer. So, you know, melanoma is much less common than basal cell and squamous cell, but there are about 2,000 cases. So right now there's about 7,500 deaths annually from melanoma, and there's about 2,500 from squamous cell, and then there's other types. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you.
Melanoma is increasing by 5% every year in the United States in adults. and it's especially increasing in older adults. And some of the problems is that in our culture, men don't like to use sun protection. They don't use sunscreen. They want to use sun protection clothing, but they use a baseball cap. That's it. So men die still twice as often as do women from melanoma. Okay.
That's interesting because I would think that women are more apt to be the sunbathers. You know, we view tan skin as a preferred thing.
We talked about that north versus the south.
Yep.
The big problem in the north, we know that melanoma is caused by sunburn. So sunburn damages the genes in the skin and sets you up for the melanoma. So down in the south where you've got some cumulative sun exposure, you do get some built-in protection in that skin. I don't know if one group is healthier than the other. I don't know the answer to that. But it has been interesting to look at, there was a study by Wong showing in the American pediatrics literature that there was a 10 times increased incidence in the northern half of the United States over the south for melanoma in kids. So that's two parts. Let's see if I can remember the third part you asked me.
It was kind of like that, you know, the fear factor.
For us, we never talk about the dangers of the sun. I do not want to make the sun the enemy because there are so many things for kids to be fearful of. We never talk about the dangers. We talk about just being smart. It's like anything. If you're teaching kids how to cook, you're not going to let them touch the stove when it's hot. We want kids to just think, and we tell them, you're smart. Just think about it. You know, the sun is a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing, and I agree with you. It keeps us happy and healthy, and we can use it well. You just have to be careful, like a lot of things. And, you know, a lot of things, you just have to be prudent and be careful. But we never say that's bad or no. We just say, you know, think about it. I do say that about indoor tanning, though, I must say.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm glad those days are mostly done. That's horrifying, really.
Most of the UV rays in the tanning beds is so high that what they found is that young people were getting skin cancer, melanoma, basal cell, 10 times faster if they had indoor tanned than if they got their sun naturally. So it was really a very heavy concentrated dose of UV that, again, damaged the tumor suppressor genes in our skin. I mean, we have things built in to protect our skin. They can get turned off if we do certain things.
Right. And then the last thing was, you know, that toxic load. I think the average person is just pulling the sunscreen off the shelf that, you know, where the packaging is most attractive. Honestly, I don't think there's a lot of education on the chemical substances. I don't think it's the average person that's looking for the zinc oxide.
So
it is concerning to me.
One of the things that the FDA had said that they were going to do last year was that the new labeling was going to mandate that the ingredients be on the front of the label in percentage concentration right on the front of the label. So that was supposed to be new so that consumers could read the label better. One of the reasons that the FDA has been concerned about sunscreens is what you're kind of alluding to, which is that people use more sunscreen now more frequently. Dermatologists say 1 ounce every 2 hours, bottle of sunscreen a day at the beach. Okay.
I find that kind of extreme.
Yeah, but that's the dose that's recommended. That's according to the research. So, you know, when they do the studies in the lab, they use the 1 ounce per application, and that's why they recommend it. But now, higher SPF, some of them have 5 different chemical ingredients in them. So, you know, I think that if people are concerned, you're better off with zinc and titanium, which is going to sit on top of your skin and reflect the UV rays away from your skin. Chemical sunscreens absorb the UV rays and break them down. Sunscreen breaks them down. The higher the UV intensity is on a given day, the faster sunscreen comes off your skin. So we say every 2 hours, but that's a rule of thumb. That's based on averages. But if you're in a place where the UV is really high, your sunscreen can disappear off your skin in an hour.
Okay, do you do any education on ingredients or the actual labeling of sunscreens?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, and my last question, I thank you very much for your time, is what are the optimal times for that 10 minutes, 3 days a week?
Midday.
Midday.
So
Like at the 3 o'clock hour,
it's a little
when I'm
late.
walking my dog?
It's a little late.
It's a little
really
late.
recommended 12 noon, 12, 1 o'clock is the best time. That's the most optimal time for you to get you. And you can look up William Holick. I mean, some of his research talks about the amount of vitamin D you can create by a 10-minute exposure in June in Cape Cod. And it's extreme, the amount of vitamin D that's metabolized in your skin with that very tiny dose.
Yeah, that's great to know. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So we're gonna, Sean, it kind of looks like you're jumping out your seat, looking to
Oh, no,
ask a question.
I'm just a little uncomfortable. I did have a question, but I can wait though. Or
Nope, that's okay. You're gonna be our last question.
okay. How much does your family's experience with melanoma and skin cancer predict your experience with it?
Tremendously. So if you've got a parent or a first-degree relative with melanoma, your risk of melanoma is 800% greater than somebody that does not have that family history. So, and the thing that's really interesting, it's not just the skin type that you inherit, but you also inherit the behaviors. So I grew up in the family that went to the beach every nice day in the summer. My mother was a teacher. She loaded us all in the station wagon and we went to the beach all the time. We got a lot of exposure as kids. So it's a combination of coloring and exposures, behaviors. But yes, it plays a big role. The other thing that's really important, if you've had one melanoma, you've got a 6% chance of getting another one. And if you've had a basal cell or squamous cell, you've got a 40% chance of developing another one. And that's why once you get a diagnosis of skin cancer, you have to see dermatologists regularly for screening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Well, Maryellen, thank you so much for being generous with your time. It's been great. There's so many great questions.
Thank you. It was terrific. I really enjoyed it.
And thank you. Hopefully there will be a part 2 at some point. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining. And actually, okay, one last question.
Yeah.
We have praying people here on the call and in the audience. How can people be praying for you and your organization?
Well, I told you when we spoke personally that, you know, it's a transition time for my organization because we can no longer go into the schools and teach. We can't go into the community right now. We can't raise money to do what we're doing. So we just had the rug pulled out from, like a lot of people did. So it's just, you know, trying to figure out what we're going to do in the future. I could use all the prayers that we end up being able to continue the mission of our organization, which is to prevent skin cancer one child at a time through education and advocacy. And, you know, my goal is to continue to, you know, make this disease less prevalent in our country.
Amen.
Amen.
I think we can all say amen to that. All right. Well, thank you again, Maryellen. It's been wonderful. And have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank
you. Everybody. Stay safe.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Maryellen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you too.
Bye. Thanks, Bailey.
Thank you, Shannon. Great to see you.
You too.
Goodbye.
Bye.